Welcome back to another episode of Fresh Out of College. We are partnering once again with Sodo Mojo to give you the scoop on the Seattle Mariners. My name is Drew Campbell, and I'm joined by my co-host, Randa Shino, and Sodo Mojo's editor, Willie Keeler.
Today we're joined by Joe Rizzo, a Seattle Mariners prospect. He was drafted in 2016 in the second round.
Today we talked with Joe about everything from his training dad needing a cortisone shot because he's working him too hard, to his TV turning off just 2 minutes before his name was called, his favorite teammates, the dining scene in Clinton, Iowa, as well as, of course, Julio Rodriguez's swag.
Let's hop into it.
Today we are joined by Joe Rizzo, the second round pick in the 2016 MLB draft. He is a part of the new youth movement in the Jerry DiPoto era of the Seattle Mariners, and is coming off a great 2019 season and also played really well in the instructional league this past fall. We are so thankful that he's here, and thanks for joining us, Joe.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you guys for having me.
Joe, it's good to hear your voice and be able to talk to you virtually during these tough times. But I guess that's just what technology has come to, and we're great to have. I mean, that's why we're having this podcast. So let's just get right into the meat of things. I kind of want to know, what drew you to the game of baseball? Was it the ability to hit that curveball, or just being able to play doubleheader games when one game gets canceled? Or I mean, what kind of drew you to the game of baseball and your love and passion to pursue it professionally?
I started really playing pretty early. I mean, I would play wiffle ball with my dad, my grandfather, probably 7-ish, something like that. And that's really all where it kind of started, kind of stemmed from there. It all kind of went up. I mean, I was always pretty good at a younger age, but I didn't know then I'd be here now. But yeah, growing up, really, I loved the game. I mean, I gave up all over other sports super early. Like, I don't think I played another sport past 7th grade. So, yeah, so I just fell in love with the game, and that's where it all comes from.
That's awesome. Wiffle ball. I think the last time I played wiffle ball was at my grandparents' house, and I was terrible at it. But I mean, I can just see you hitting bombs out there. And it's interesting because baseball and wiffle ball, they're obviously very closely the same, but when you ask a basketball player, an NBA player, how they got into the game, it's usually that. But to hear coming from a different avenue, it's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Are you guys good at wiffle ball? Or obviously you guys are baseball players too, but
for me, it was just playing catch with my younger brother. I don't know if we actually even played wiffle ball, but I think this is actually kind of funny. I think I played a lot of catch with my dad and brother growing up, which made me a pretty good defensive baseball player, but that also meant I couldn't hit very well. I was like a contact hitter with 250, but pretty good with the glove. So I guess it really matters how you played baseball as a kid. So
it's all in there we go.
I've dabbled in some wiffle ball. I'm no Joe Rizzo, but I mean, ask my dad. It definitely hits a few dingers off my dad at the beach and the park. So I don't know. I might be now that Joe's moved on to bigger and better things, I might be coming for the best wiffle ball player in the chat right now. I don't know.
All right. Well, all I know is that I'm the best MLB The Show. So I mean,
I'm terrible.
I guess I have that calling there. Okay, Joe. More on the lines of your upbringing and how you got to the MLB. Talk us through what your path was to getting drafted. I know you put up out of the world numbers in high school. I mean, looking at your high school stats, you put up 608 in your junior year and then 392 in your final season. But what were some other things that you kind of did to get noticed by the scouts?
Honestly, kind of when I started high school, you know how they start all the rankings and all that stuff so early these days and everything. I wasn't really kind of one of the top guys in my high school class. I mean, I kind of had to progress through and everything. But when we first got there, I was kind of just like the guy who was committed to college, and I was going to go to campus and I was going to play there, and that was going to be me. And then all of a sudden, that junior year when I really kind of went off in high school, and I carried that into that summer, was really when things started to kind of take off for me. But I played I played for the Evo Shield Canes when I wasn't playing for the high school team, and that they do a fantastic job of getting guys out there and making sure that they get seen. So that really helped a ton as well. And my dad, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. He did a ton of research. He didn't play baseball pretty much at all. I think he was a track runner in high school. So him doing his research and everything like that on everything that needed to be done from a recruiting standpoint really kind of took off for me.
That's awesome. So you said that you guys kind of had to do the research. I know like from the NFL and NBA, they have the combines, which are very popular and a lot of people strive to get there. But for that, do you think the MLB does a good job of, giving a platform for amateurs with your talent to get noticed? Or is it more of just like, okay, I have to, put in this much time to get there. And if I don't do that, I don't get recognized and I have to try another avenue. Do you think the MLB does a good job of that? Or is there another way for improvement to get, the talent and recognition?
I honestly, I do think they do a pretty good job. Like it's a ton different than the NBA or the NFL because those guys all come out of college, whereas with the MLB, you got so many different avenues. So you can't really necessarily do one big combine with all the college guys or whoever that is wanting to go get drafted that year. And it's also, I mean, last year it was 5 rounds, but in previous it's been upwards of 40. So they do a good job of allowing teams to really take on a big scouting role and letting their guys go all around the country to do that. I mean, that's really all it's about. Is I met with, I think 28 teams. He came here into my home in Virginia here and just kind of sat down and got to know us and we got to know them. So there's not really much else they can do besides really go see the games and go to those perfect game in those Under Armour and in the travel games and all that for high schoolers. At least with college, it's a little bit easier with the games being televised and then you go see them in person as well. So there's not really much else they can really do.
That's good insight. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I didn't even think about the high schoolers and all of that too. I mean, that's a lot.
The
and
international guys as well.
Exactly. I mean, talk about having a busy day throughout the off season for the scouts. Definitely get worth the pay. Walk us through when you were drafted and kind of the draft day experience. Where were you and who were you with? Just so we can get more insight on kind of your experience getting drafted.
Yeah, so there's actually a video on YouTube of me and my family and friends. I couldn't find it if I tried, but I think one of my neighbors here posted it or something like that. But yeah, I was here at home and we ordered catering and stuff like that, and we were in the garage we were all kind of huddled around. It was a nice day. So, I mean, it was the middle, what is that, June? Is it the beginning? So, I mean, it was gorgeous outside. So we were able to do that and it was late. So it was starting to get a little cooler and we had everybody out there. And then it was actually pretty funny. One of my neighbors, we had the TV set up out in the garage. So obviously we had the extension cord kind of running through.
Of course.
Like 2 minutes before my name popped up, kicked the extension cord and it ended up breaking and we all had to rush into the house and we like just one pick before was when all that happened and it was pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, if you are able to find the video, that's why we're all inside and not out in the garage where we all started.
We'll definitely get Rizzo to find that video and post it. It will come viral and this episode will blow up. That's awesome though.
It was a ton of fun.
Did you have a feeling that the Mariners were targeting you during your process, or was it more of just like, whoa, I'm, going to Seattle, going to the Pacific Northwest?
Yeah. So my now agent, then advisor, Mike Zimmerman, he was talking to pretty much everybody out there that he could get his voice heard. And pretty much when it came around, I had a good idea of who or where or when I would go, but obviously like you don't know for sure. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I'm happy that I'm here and I've had a great time in the Seattle organization so far. So I'm glad it's all worked out so far.
Yeah. I mean, you're proving it year in and year out. I'm just like, I asked you that question because whenever I watch like sports films and they get drafted, they're always going through like that. You hear the agent saying, this team's not a good pick, or they're targeting here and blah, blah. So that's why I always ask. And it's always good to hear the different experiences on draft day, which is really cool. Okay. And then moving on, I know you spent a few seasons in the minor leagues. What would you say the toughest adjustment from your high school career to the MLB? And I know there's a lot. So if you want to talk about all of them, please do. But if you want to give like two big adjustments that you've kind of learned and are now the expert on from high school to the MLB.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing, and normally when we talk to the younger guys that kind of come in and give them kind of insight on what it's going to be like for them professionally as well, is playing that full 140, 160 game season is really where the adjustment had to come in. Because I mean, coming from high school, I was playing Tuesdays and Fridays during the high school season, and then I was playing the most a full week, but even then it was like 7 games tops, or I'd play on the weekends. So it wasn't like I was playing every single day. And that's really the big adjustment that you have to make, is learning how to prep your body every single day. Cause you're never going to feel 100%. There's a saying out there that the only time you feel 100% is the first day of spring training. And it's honestly very true, because after that, you got to go out there and learn how to play your A game with your C game, if you know what I mean there. So that's really the biggest adjustment I had to make, was learning how to show up day in and day out.
That's true. That's a lot of games. And I feel like a lot of people don't actually notice that. I mean, you guys are playing every single day. And when you're not playing, you're looking at film and you're resting up, or even then you're going into the cage. So that's true. And
it's a full day too. It's not like we're just kind of showing up for the game and we're rolling in at 6 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game, and then we play. And then like I get to the park probably around 12-ish every day, get all my pre-stuff done, hit the cage, all that, field, get all that done, sometimes lift beforehand. But yeah, it's a full day of work every day. And you get that one off day a month, maybe. You're going on 28 games straight. It's tough.
And then after the game, is it go straight to bed, or do you guys go out and get some food? I feel like you haven't eaten in like 3 hours, because the games can go on for that long too. So
yeah, so normally we get a post game spread, so we kind of walk in and the food's kind of already there, so we all pretty much eat. And if we don't like some whatever's there that day or something like that, we can go out and get whatever we want. But yeah, I try to get in bed as quick as possible, really, because it's tough, because you're getting out at 11, and then you're showering, you're getting home, you're driving home, then you got to get ready for bed and all that. And by that time, it's like 12 o'clock, and you're going to wake up at 9 the next day or whenever. So it's all about just kind of learning the schedule and adapting to it.
Yeah, for the love of the game, that's for sure. So you guys, as Ryota alluded to, you're kind of the new wave for the Mariners. What has your experience been like in the Mariners organization? And what are some of your friends that or like the relationships that you've formed, and how has that whole process been in the Mariners organization?
Yeah, it's been really cool. I've been fortunate enough. I got to play with both Evan and Kyle in the same year. And so watching those guys do what they're doing up in the big leagues right now has been awesome. They're both tremendous people and tremendous players, and I couldn't be happier for them. But this fall, I got to hang out with a bunch of guys there. And I mean, obviously we couldn't go anywhere or do anything. So it was pretty much just us as a group kind of sticking together. So we didn't get the whole place shut down. But I spent a lot of time with Cal Raleigh and Carter Benz, and those two guys are phenomenal. And I feel like I grew a good relationship with those two, along with Trammell as well. Trammell wasn't in the same hotel as us, but we'd pop over there and get to know him pretty well. It was cool having him, because we got drafted together back in 2016, and I've only ever played against him. And I mean, obviously I knew him beforehand, but really getting to know him as a person has been awesome.
It's kind of interesting, because then transition from what Drew was talking about and eating after the games, then I kind of thought, interestingly enough, in the minors, it's obviously not the like glamour of the pros, and there's a lot of things that people talk about, and it's the air travel, the team jets, it's things like that people will talk about. But at the same time, then you don't really ever like think about the food. How was like when you were in like Modesto and in Clinton? How does that kind of like how does that kind of work as like the new guy? Is it like do you get in there and then there's like only certain amount of like good restaurants in town that the guys who might have been there for a few more years will take you guys out to and introduce you to, or is it like oh if we don't like the spread that night we're going down the street to Denny's or Wendy's? Like how does that work in places like Modesto and in like Clinton?
Clinton was tough. I mean, that place. I'm glad I went through going through there and becoming the player that I am through that. But the only two real restaurants outside the field are that like chain wise are Applebee's and Buffalo Wild Wings. So that was pretty much your only option unless you wanted to go to McDonald's or whatever, but no one really wanted to do that. So, but yeah, I mean, the Mariners have done a really good job from when I first got drafted to where we are now with regards to food. Like when I first got drafted and I was in the AZL, I think more than a couple nights, our post game meal would be like a roast beef sandwich and a bag of chips or something like that. And now it's come full circle too. Obviously, when you go to affiliates and stuff like that, sometimes you get catered and stuff like that. So that's really nice. But they've done a really good job. Our cooks at the facility in Arizona are fantastic, and they put together such great meals. And I couldn't be happier with where we are with nutrition and food.
Yeah, and then it's funny too because then also something that Drew brought up a little bit about, but then kind of going through the system and making friends. Something that I thought was interesting, diving a little bit into your Twitter, was I saw it seems like you were pretty good friends, and if I'm not mistaken, followed that same path in 2017, I believe it was, from Clinton to Modesto with Robert Duggar, who just got claimed by the Mariners. Like, how was that kind of moment like? Because considering he, obviously was in the Mariners system, then goes to Miami and then getting claimed by the Mariners. How did that kind of work? Since it's, it's not like, it's not like guaranteed that, in the next few years you'll be on the same team with him and, getting claimed. It's all kind of a weird situation. And, you being in on the lower levels of the minors and working your way up. How does that kind of work? Just like hey buddy, we're back. Like, let's hope we can be on the same team, or, see him in spring training or something like that. Like, how'd that kind of work?
Yeah, I'm really glad Duggar's back. He's a really great dude, and I've since lost his number just because I've gotten a new phone and everything, so I don't have it anymore. So I wasn't able to text him or anything like that. But so the same thing, we got drafted together and we spent the entire year in the AZL in 2016, and then we were together in Clinton in 17, and then he went up to Modesto, and then at the end there I was up with him. So I mean, I got to play with him a ton, and he's a phenomenal pitcher, and I couldn't be happier that he's with us again.
Yeah, then similar to that too, then talking about, seeing him, pitch, and, I'm sure there's certain guys, and, I wouldn't be surprised if Robert is one of those ones, but you've been on the same team as a ton of different guys who have now appeared in the MLB for different teams. And, like, for example, like Luis Rengifo, who's now with the Angels, in Clinton together with him. But then that 2017 team, which you touched on a little bit, like bringing up Kyle Lewis, that 2017 team in Modesto, I mean, there's some guys on there. Were there any guys like through the system? You take out, I don't know if you were there for this, but I saw that Hisashi Iwakuma made one rehab start. I don't know if you were,
Yeah, I was not there for that one.
Okay,
when I was going to make that restart. But the next, 2 years after that, I was there when Felix made his rehab start down there, he was really cool to play behind.
Mm-hmm. Was that like so? You can touch on that a little more too, the MLB guys. But then for the young guys coming up, were there certain guys? Obviously, Kyle being a first round pick, but were there certain guys like certain guy like on that 2017 team, since there were a bunch of them, like Duggar, I think LJ Newsom's on that team as well. Were there certain guys where you had moments where you're like, yeah, that guy's going to be in the pros in a few years, and you could just tell, even if they didn't have the best stats in the world, you could just see the sparks, and you're like, yeah, that guy's going to be in the MLB?
Yeah, that 17 team in Modesto was that that was probably one of the better teams on paper I've ever played on. It just, you could go through our roster and just pick out any number of guys to be in the big leagues. Like you had Neidert was on that team.
Yeah, I remember
Pablo
that.
Lopez was there. Misevich was on that team, who's now in our bullpen. I'm trying to think who else. It was just what was that, 3-4 years ago at this point?
Yeah, I think it was like LJ
Yeah, and then you got
Wyatt Mills.
Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I play. Wyatt was there as well. Oh shoot, I can't believe I'm just blanking on all this, but it was a special group, and
there's so
it
many
was
of them. You're totally right. Like,
yeah, chock full of talent on that team, and I mean we played, what was it, 6 games in the playoffs and won all 6. Like it was extremely impressive, and it was a very talented group, and I'm happy that I was on that team.
then I have to press you on a little bit, because then it was funny when we had Ryan Roland Smith on, and it's just similar to it, just on a lower scale. Of course, he dealt with the rumors, and then the rumors coming true that Ken Griffey Jr. was going to be on the same team as him in the same clubhouse as him. So kind of how did that work with the rumors and kind of the like, oh, Felix is hurt, he's going to be coming back. Like, I wonder if he's going to be pitching Modesto, and then who tells you? How does that kind of get down the grapevine? And they're like, oh, Felix is going to be our teammate for a day or a few days. Like how'd that kind of all work, and then being in the same clubhouse as him? And I'm assuming the fanfare and the media is going to be a little bit different for that night as well.
Yeah, the amount of fans that we had that night was ridiculous, and just having him in the clubhouse was special because, I mean, obviously the guy is one of the most famous baseball players out there, like one of the greatest pitchers ever. Like, and having him in Modesto was especially just phenomenal. He was an awesome guy, and just he really took care of us too. But I've really gotten a chance to play with a lot of the big leaguers that we've had. Like played with Mike Zunino, came down for a couple game stretch. Haniger was with us for a little bit. I'm trying to think of who else had. Gershon Batista came down and pitched for us. Ben Gamel was on our team at one point. Like I've gotten to play with a ton of guys that have been on our big league roster, and it's always fun to have those guys in town because they give a different outlook. Like with us, I mean, it comes with a lot of stresses because you're kind of playing to move up to the next level, but then you got a guy in the big leagues who's coming down to play in a rehab game. Who, I mean, the game doesn't really necessarily matter a ton for them. They're just kind of get their at bats, get their feet under them, get ready to go back up there. So just watching them play so relaxed it's a good lesson learned from those guys coming down, just because it's not that they don't care, because they obviously do. They want to perform. Just the relaxation and the calmness that they have when they're out on the field is fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and last question I'll ask you before I give it back to Drew Riota. Kind of, ability to either maybe hype up someone that, it's a super low-key contributor, in the Mariners organization, or someone that we might have even heard of, maybe someone who's even gotten, promoted up. I know there's been a lot of promotion in the minor league system through up to the majors for the Mariners staff. But was there a certain coach or a few coaches through through the minor leagues so far that has totally, developed your game defensively or offensively? Like I said, could be a guy that Mariners fans will have heard of, who, might be a big time coach, or, even just someone who we haven't heard of, who's a low key guy who's, been able to develop, everyone from Kyle Seager to Joe Rizzo, or, left side infielders and infielders, things like that. Is there like one or two of those coaches in the minor league system that you've been able to work under?
So just because 2019 was really kind of my turnaround kind of breakout year, I'm just going to kind of touch on that coaching staff, because they really kind of helped me progress to where I'm at now. And I've been getting better ever since I was in that clubhouse. But it was Denny Hawking was our manager, Jose Umbria was our hitting coach, and Lewis Boyd, who was our 4th coach, but then moved into the manager role down in Everett halfway to 3/4 of the way through the year. But each one of those guys really just phenomenal with how they treated us and everything that they could do, whether it was in the cage or on the field. And and Boyd really was one of the big contributors for my defense getting a ton better from where it was when I first got drafted. Like, and it's funny because he's now the manager in Everett, and I don't know where he's going to be managing next year, but we were roommates when Boyd first got drafted. So it's kind of funny to see him go from a guy that I played right next to into now a big manager coaching role. So it's been awesome having him as a coach, just because he's such a relatable player, because he's not that far removed from the game, which is awesome, and he's young as well. But all those guys really helped me with where I'm at now, and I couldn't be happier with them, and I thank them all so much.
That's awesome to hear. Before we move on to topic 3, I kind of still want to, I'm still stuck on the food and the spread. So I want to know, when Felix, Mitch Haniger, and, Mike Zunino came in, did they ever take you out and say, all right, you know what, we're going to Denny's, or we're going somewhere, and you guys won't have this spread. I'm going to treat you guys. Or was it more of like, not that at all? I want to know.
So normally when those guys come down, they treat the clubhouse with something, whether it's post-game spread. I think back in 2017, Miranda came down, and instead of getting us dinner, which I think he also did anyway, but he took care of all our clubhouse dues for that series when he was down there as well. So those guys really, when they do come down, they do a really good job of taking care of the minor league system and making sure that we either get a really good meal, or we don't have to pay out of our pockets for something or anything else like that. They're all phenomenal, just great guys.
That's really cool. That's something we don't really hear.
Yeah.
I mean, ever. That's actually really cool. That I've never even heard of that. And that's awesome.
Normally you just see them and they're just in the minor league uniform with the big league helmet.
Yeah.
But you don't really see what kind of goes on behind, which is them really taking care of us, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Kind of going off of that, behind the scenes mentality. You were just in Arizona, in the instructional league, where you had a phenomenal, it was 6-week, shortened season. What kind of take us behind the scenes and tell us what that exactly is like? Because, we don't get to see it on TV. We don't really hear much of it. We only really see the stats. Like, what is that like? Is it very spring training like?
Yeah, so it was a much different experience than I've had so far playing in the minor league system. Like, we were getting tested for COVID every Monday, and I want to say every Thursday maybe. And so just that alone, but they really wanted to minimize the amount of time really spent in the clubhouse. So sometimes we would come in waves. We tried to spend as much time away from each other as possible, just to kind of make sure none of us really brought it in, and make sure we could get that full season in. But and not to mention like all the extracurricular stuff. Like, we couldn't really, we were advised not to really go anywhere. They didn't really put the hammer down and say, hey, you guys are locked in your rooms afterwards. But I mean, no one really went out and did anything. It was more just about being smart and just really knowing what's right and what's wrong. But I'd probably relate it most to probably spring training, just because that's where spring training normally is. It's Arizona. You're playing on field 2 or field 3, and you got your cage work, you're taking BP, everything like that. That's probably the biggest comparison, to be able to put it out there. But it was a ton of fun, really, because I played with a lot of guys who it was their first year or first time ever really being in the United States, like Milcar and who else was there? I'm blanking. I'm sorry, but yeah, just like guys like that, where they're coming over for the first time and they're really learning the Americas and everything like that. And then you got you guys like me and Cal and Carter and Taylor and all those guys like that, where we've been around for a little bit. We kind of know the system and what it's all about and everything like that. So it was a really big mix of people, and it was fun to be around. We had a pretty good team.
Yeah, it must have been an exciting time, because you get like a mix of not all, but many of the Mariners, prospects. And I remember like it's probably Sam Carlson's first time throwing since his, injury.
Yeah,
There was a
that
couple of people, making their, professional debuts. So it must have been
that
really
was
cool.
fantastic. I couldn't be happier for Sam. Like I was the first hitter he faced when he threw his first bullpen in spring training back in March, and
Mhm.
watching him be able to throw in a real game, I couldn't be happier for the guy. Seriously, like going what he went through and bouncing back and being the guy he is it's impressive, and I couldn't be more proud and happy for him.
Yeah, and it looked like he did pretty well. We were checking out the stats pretty closely. It looked like he did pretty. I mean, everybody did well. Cal played really well.
Yeah.
You played well. Rodriguez was hitting the ball pretty well. Actually, could you tell us a little bit more about J-Rod, what you've seen from him? Obviously, he's very young and everyone's raving about him, but from an insider perspective, what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, who he is, that's exactly who he is. He's the most energetic person out there. He's a phenomenal baseball player, and he shows it everywhere he can. He's so confident in everything that he does, and he's so deliberate about his work. He's a special kid. Like you look at him, and you're you're visually you're like, yeah, that guy's 19, 20. But watching him go through the way he is, you'd think he'd be 30, just
Yeah.
because he's so deliberate about what he does.
All right, that's a good transition to kind of how COVID-19 has impacted everybody. And it's obviously the main thing to talk about because it was the only thing that happened. But Joe, I kind of want to know kind of how you kept physically fit and also some fun stuff that you did during the pandemic. I know everything was limited, but I kind of just want to go around and hear all about the stories that you guys did, as well as just how you kept fit for the MLB season.
Yeah, I do feel like I kind of got a different outlook than most on it, just because normally I'm gone from the beginning of January to the beginning of September. So turning around and then getting to spend all those months here with my family, my girlfriend as well, and her family, it was a really cool change of pace just to be able to kind of get with them and be able to spend more quality time with them. So that was pretty cool. Like obviously, I'd rather be out and progressing with the career and everything like that. But just being able to spend all that quality time with them really was fantastic. And my girlfriend actually, she started a job during the pandemic, fortunately for her, and so she's been also helping fix up her parents' house, which is pretty much what I've been helping her with the entire time since then. So she's really kicking off a whole ton of projects, and it's been cool seeing her do that. But the really big thing was going into that fall season where we played those 20 games and everything like that, where I hadn't stepped foot on a field since March when spring training all broke out.
Mm-hmm.
I was honestly going into it a little bit worried, not necessarily like scared or anything like that, just a little nervous just because I hadn't played in a game for the longest time ever in my life. Like normally it's a couple months or that season ends and then I'm back again in next February. But it was that full, what was it, 6, 7 months that we were all kind of stuck together. So it been sitting in the back of my head, like, man, like this is the longest I've ever gone without playing. But being able to do what I did out there, really, it made me extremely happy with the way I prepared back home here, and then just kind of carrying into it. It gave me a great deal of confidence in myself, and I'm really happy with the way I was able to perform with the limited resources that we really had, because everything was shut down. So it wasn't like I was able to go to the gym or go, like I was hitting with my dad off the machine, and like when it first started, my dad was throwing to me every day, and then I kind of worked him into the ground, and he actually had to go get a cortisone shot in his
No.
shoulder because he was struggling to pick it up. So he can't really throw anymore. So I went ahead and bought a machine very recently, actually, just like a week ago. And so I've been using that here, which I'm really happy with. But being able to link with my high school coach, actually, and they have a machine up at my high school, and I was kind of lugging that thing around, making sure I was getting my work in off of it. But I couldn't be happier with the preparation, the work that I put in to be able to perform as well as I did, not being on a field for as long as I was.
Yeah, you proved it too. I mean, like you said, you came out and you spent, I mean, that was the longest time away from the field, but I mean, it just restores confidence in yourself that you're able to perform that way. And I
Right.
think your dad's happy that you bought a machine and now you're the one lugging it around and he doesn't have to get injured by it. But
Right.
that's super funny though.
Yeah. And that was pretty much the leading factor of me getting it, was so that I didn't want to make him throw it all or anything like that. And just so I have one as well that I'm able to use every day. So, cause that was, if I could attribute anything, that was probably the biggest thing that helped me through the pandemic and get and play as well as I did, was hitting off the machine every day. And that's what I did while we were in Arizona as well. I hit off the machine every day. And so I just kept up with it. So I was like, man, I really need one of my own just so I can have it and use it whenever I want. And so that's what I ended up doing.
It's kind of funny because I mean, I don't think you would have gotten a machine if this didn't happen. So it's kind of a step back in a way. You're with your family, and congrats getting a new job, and that's huge as well, especially during the pandemic. And just I feel like both of you guys kind of just spearheaded this thing and said this pandemic's not going to slow me down. And I found new ways to get my work in ways that I didn't think I was going to past or prior to the pandemic. So I think that's great to hear. And it just speaks to kind of your mentality and the way you go about baseball. And I mean, the stats don't lie, and you've proven that day in and day out, especially when you're back on the field.
Yeah. And seriously, I couldn't be more proud of her for doing what she's been doing. Like she's a workhorse. She nonstop. And I'm so happy for her that she's got her job and she's doing all these projects, and I'm there helping her whenever I can. And I couldn't be more proud of her. She's a phenomenal person, and I'm extremely happy to be with her.
That's great.
That's awesome.
What are some things that you are excited for? Hopefully we hear that spring training is going to commence on time, and hopefully that comes to fruition. What are you kind of excited about when you get to spring training and see all the guys again?
That's the biggest thing. The most fun part about spring training is the first couple of days when you get to see everybody that you hadn't seen since last spring training. Because I mean, you're playing with the same 25 guys. Maybe it goes up to 35, where a couple of guys shuffle in and out of a couple of different clubhouses, but you don't see most of those guys for a full year. And it's getting to see them again and hang out with them and really talk. It's nice getting back into the groove. But I'm not exactly sure how it's going to be given the situation we're all in, just because I think I saw that minor league spring training would be pushed back a month after major league spring training. And I also, I honestly don't even know when major league spring training will start. I mean, I'm hoping it starts on time. That way the rest of us can start a little bit after that. But I hope we get going.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that's the big if, but I mean, yeah, I hope it starts on time so that you guys can get your work in. But it's really cool that you said that this is the first time you guys, or you've reconnected with some of the players that you haven't seen in a year. I kind of want to do something that's a little fun. I want to do superlatives. So I'm going to say who's the funniest, and then you're going to have to give me a name and somebody that you know in the minors.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
I mean,
so who's the funniest teammate you've had?
I'd have to say Joey Gerber is one of the funniest people in the clubhouse. The guy's really a riot. And I don't know, do you guys follow him on Twitter?
I have tweet notifications for our blog website set up for him, and I pretty much retweet every single thing he tweets. It's kind of just a running gag that we have on the thing. It's amazing the stuff he tweets.
So that's exactly who he has as a person is his Twitter, and it's hilarious. I love being around the guy. He's a fun guy to be around. Don't get me wrong, he's very reserved and he can definitely keep quiet, but once you get him going, it's funny.
So not to go off what Drew was saying, but then or get away from what Drew was saying, but then so like for example, the one that's caused a lot of stir was his recent one when he said that cupcakes are just diet cake. I think is when he said, and people brought it up in the. So like when you were on the teams with him, would he literally just come in the clubhouse? You're tying up your cleats. I mean, you're putting on, you're putting on your jersey and everything like that. And he's just like, Joe, you ever think about it? Like, cupcakes are just diet cake. Like, is that like the kind of guy he is? Or is he just like a kind of funny guy and then those weird thoughts go out on Twitter? Or is that literally him all the time?
So it's not literally him all the time, but those weird thoughts do go out on Twitter, and that's the main part of him and his Twitter presence is all those tweets. And I love them. I think they're fantastic because I'm the worst person with social media. I don't know if you guys have gone through my Twitter or anything like that. I think the last time I tweeted may have been 3 years ago. I retweet stuff here and then, but
I went through your Twitter.
Man,
You pretty much just retweet whenever people would mention Joe Rizzo. I think was kind of the theme I saw. Was just your teammates doing well, like in the pros, or if there was a mention of Joe Rizzo.
Yeah.
And then you'd retweet that.
Yeah. Like I never go on there or do anything. Like, and so he's out there just tweeting whatever comes across his mind. I love it.
That's awesome. Okay. I have one more, or maybe two more if I think of another one. But who would be the most likely to get a PhD if they didn't professionally pursue baseball for your teammates? And it could be you too. So, I mean, don't cut yourself short.
It's not me. But to get a PhD, I'd have to say Sam Delaplane. I've gotten to know him pretty well, and his girlfriend as well, and they're both extremely smart people. His girlfriend especially, the two of them. Well, now fiance actually. I shouldn't say that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he just got engaged, and they're both very smart people.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I mean, those were my two. Do you guys have any more? Or, throw some out to Joe.
What about who has the most swag in the clubhouse or on the field too?
Probably Julio.
Yeah.
If I were just, that's Julio Rodriguez is the flashy, the show. That's why he's the J-Rod show. That's him.
Well, Joe, it was a pleasure to talk to you, and hopefully we get the chance to talk to you again in the future. Keep doing what you're doing, and great things are going to happen. Obviously, you have the work ethic and everything to go with it, and we're just here to watch you perform well, and we're big fans. And thank you again for coming on. And
yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Seriously, thank you guys a ton for having me. It was a ton of fun, and I'm glad we were able to do this, especially in the world we're all in now, where the media is all online. You don't get the in-person stuff. So thank you guys, and it's a great thing that you guys are doing.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for coming on, Joe. Hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
See you, man.
Take it easy.